All right, section 7, we go into proofs a little more. How can we describe the angle pair relationships? And we're going to use these angle pair relationships to do some proofs. So theorem 2.1 says all right angles are congruent. So any angle that's a right angle is congruent because they all have to be 90 degrees. So we're going to use the right angle congruence, and we're going to do this proof. We are going to prove that angle K is congruent to angle L. So when we do proofs, we always start with the given. So segment JK perpendicular to segment KL, and segment ML is perpendicular to segment KL. And that is the given statement. Right, and since we know that they are perpendicular, those segments are, what does that mean by definition? So if you're using the definition of perpendicular, what does that tell us? Well, if JK is perpendicular to KL, that means they form a right angle. So that would mean angle K is equal to, angle K is a right angle. Angle K is a right angle. And it also means angle L is a right angle, because perpendicular means they form a right angle. So that would be the definition of perpendicular. So by definition of perpendicular, we know that those are right angles. Okay, and what does it mean to be a right angle? So since angle K is a right angle, we know the measure of angle K is equal to 90 degrees. And we know the measure of angle L is equal to 90 degrees, because definition of right angle. By definition, it means right angles are 90 degrees. So if measure angle K equals 90 and the measure angle L equals 90, we can say that angle K is congruent to angle L. And the reasoning would be, well, they both equal 90 degrees. So it could be technically substitution. Or we're going to say, well, both are 90 degrees is a good enough reason for me, because we said they both equal 90, so they must be congruent to each other. Okay, so we just proved that two right angles have to be congruent to each other. Okay, as we scroll down, Theorem 2.4 and Theorem 2.5 talks about supplements and complements. So supplements, again, are two angles that add up to 180. So if two angles are supplementary to the same angle, then they are congruent. So for example, notice that angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary, and angle 3 and angle 2 are supplementary. We can conclude that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, because you see how they're both are supplementary to angle 2. And same thing in Theorem 2.5. If angle 4 is complementary to angle 5 and angle 6 is complementary to angle 5, that means angle 4 is congruent to angle 6. So if two angles are complementary to the same angle, they're congruent. Or if two angles are supplementary to the same angle, they are congruent. Okay, so let's scroll down to checkpoint 1. It says, suppose angle B and angle A are complements, and angle A and angle C are complements. Can angle B and angle C be supplements? Explain. So if angle A and B are complements, what that means is the measure, change colors, the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B equals 90 degrees. Okay, and we also know that the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle C equals 90 degrees, right? Because we said A and C are complements and A and B are complements. So can A and C be supplements? So what that means, can the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle C equal 180? Is that possible based on the information we're given? And the answer is no. And the reason why is because if A plus B is 90, that means A is less than 90. All right? And if A plus C is 90, that means C is also less than 90. So all of these angles are less than 90. So therefore, it cannot. So the answer is no. Angle B and angle C are less than 90. So if they're both less than 90 degrees and you add them up, it's going to be smaller than 180. So that one is no because they both are less than 90. Therefore, they could never add up to 180. Right, we have another proof. Use the congruent supplements theorem and write a proof. So in the proofs, we always start with the given. So we are given angle 1 and angle 2 are supplements. I'm going to abbreviate that SUPP. And we know that angle 1 and angle 4 are supplements. And we know that angle 2 is equal to 45 degrees. All right, and the reason is given. They told us that. So over on the side here, we know that angle 2 is 45 degrees. I'm going to write that in the picture, 45 degrees. All right, so if angle 2 is 45 degrees, so angle 2 is 45. If you look up here, if angle 1 and angle 2 are supplements, what does that mean about angle 1 if angle 2 is 45 degrees? That must mean that the measure of angle 1 is equal to 135 degrees. Because if they're supplements, that means they add to 180. So 45 plus 135 equals 180. So if one angle is 45, the other angle is 135. So this would be definition of supplements. So angle 1 is 135. All right, and then we could do step 3. So in step 3, if angle 1 is 135, how big is angle 4? Because angle 1 and angle 4 are supplements. What does that mean? Well, now I would say, well, the measure of angle 4 is equal to 45 degrees by definition of supplements, right? Because if angle 1 is 135, angle 1 and angle 4 are supplements, so therefore angle 4 has to be 45 because 135 plus 45 is 180. So now we know that angle 2 is 45 and angle 4 is 45. We just proved that measure angle 4 is 45 degrees. So we are finished. We proved what they asked us to prove. And we used the definition of supplements. As we slide down, we have a postulate. The linear pair postulate says that if two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. So if we draw a picture, a linear pair will look like this. So draw this picture the best you can in this open space. And let's call this angle 1 and angle 2. So angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. So what this means is angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. if they are a linear pair. And also, measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 is equal to 180 degrees. So a linear pair is supplementary, and if it's supplementary, they add to 180. And then 2.6 is the vertical angles theorem. So vertical angles look like this. There's two lines that cross. Angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical angles. Okay, and we also know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 because vertical angles are congruent to each other. Okay, so the picture here, 1 and 2, those angles are a picture of vertical angles, and those angles have to be congruent because they are vertical angles. Okay, and then we have another proof below this. So use the vertical angles congruence theorem. We're going to write a proof. We are given that angle 4 is a right angle, and that is given. So we know angle 4 is a right angle. We're trying to prove that angle 2 and angle 4 are supplementary. Okay, so if angle 4 is a right angle, what does that mean by definition if it is a right angle? Well, if it's a right angle, we know that the measure of angle 4 is equal to 90 degrees, and that is the definition of a right angle. So if angle 4 is 90 degrees, if you look at this picture, how big would angle 2 be? Look at angle 4, look at angle 2. What kind of angles are those? If you're thinking vertical angles, you are correct. So angle 4 and angle 2 are vertical angles because we can look at the picture and see that. So if angle 4 is 90, okay, we're going to try to show that angle 2 and angle 4 are supplementary. So based on the theorem above, this theorem above shows that vertical angles are congruent. That's what we know. So we know that if angle 4 is 90, then the measure of angle 2 is also equal to 90 degrees. And the reason is vertical angles are congruent based on what we said in the last theorem. That's what we were told. So we know the vertical angles are congruent. So now in step 4, we can say angle 2 and angle 4 are supplementary because 90 plus 90 is 180. So let's just say measure of angle 2 plus measure of angle 4 equals 180. So angle 2 and angle 4 are supplementary. And that will be definition of supplementary. So we know that angle 2 plus angle 4 is 180 because both of them are equal to 90. Therefore, they are supplementary. So each step has a reason. And onto the checkpoint. So if the measure of angle 3 is 121, find the measure of angle 1, 2, and 4. So how big would the measure of angle 1 be? So if you notice, angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles. So the measure of angle 1 would be 121 degrees. And the reason is vertical angles congruent. So it's congruent to angle 3, so it's 121. The measure of angle 2, if you look at this, angle 2 and angle 3 form a linear pair. So if this is 121, how big does angle 2 have to be? Well, they have to add up to 180, so 180 minus 121 is equal to 59 degrees. So angle 2 has to be 59 degrees because they have to form a linear pair. You see this forms a line. So 59 plus 121 is 180. All right. And then the measure of angle 4, so angle 4 and angle 2 are vertical angles. So angle 4 is also 59 degrees. So if you look, the vertical angles are in color coordinated now. 121 and 121, those are vertical angles. And then the 59-degree angles are both vertical angles, because vertical angles must be congruent. Okay. And then we have a couple more examples to finish off with practicing what we learned. So write and solve an equation to find x. So we look at the picture. There are two angles that they give us measurements for. Notice that these two angles together form a line. They form this green line. So two angles that form a line are called a linear pair, and linear pairs are supplementary. So that means 113 plus 4x minus 1 equals 180. They add up to equal 180. So on the left side, if we combine like terms, 113 and negative 1, when you add them up, you'll get 112. So we get 112 plus 4x equals 180. And again, we combined the like terms. Then we minus 112 from both sides to cancel out the 112. 4x equals 68. And then we divide by 4 to get x equals 17. So we found out what x is. So we use x to find the measure of angle FKG. So the measure of angle FKG is 4x minus 1. So I'm trying to find FKG. So it would be 4 times 17 minus 1. 4 times 17 is 68, and 68 minus 1 is 67 degrees. So FKG is 67 degrees. Checkpoint 2 is our last one. So find angle AEB. So we want to find this angle. In order to find that angle, we have to find out what x is. So what do you notice about these two angles? What kind of angles are they? You should notice that those are vertical angles, and vertical angles have to be equal to each other. So 4x minus 18 is equal to 3x plus 4. And then you would solve this. So I'm going to minus 3x to get all the x's on the left side. So we have x minus 18 equals 4. Add 18. X equals 22. So now we're going to use that to find angle AEB. So angle AEB is going to be 4 times 22 minus 18. 4 times 22 is 88. 88 minus 18 is 70. So angle AEB is equal to 70 degrees. All right, and that's it. This was a little bit longer section, but there are a lot of examples, a lot of things to cover.